It was right about this time, 14 years ago, that many individuals and businesses started feeling the first signs of a massive recession.
And so did we as a church.
6 months into the year, our giving was not nearly meeting our projections. We started asking ourselves, should we back off the vision, slow things down, throttle back?
As a staff, we had a day of fasting and prayer as we sought God's wisdom concerning our challenges. And when we regrouped together, we asked the staff, so what do you think God is telling us?
There was a lot of silence.
Finally, someone spoke up and said, I know we are in a crisis, and I know this won't make sense in our current economic climate, but I don't think God is calling us to shrink the vision. I think God is calling us to expand the vision.
It was definitely not what we expected to hear.
But as we prayed, we felt like God was not wanting us to hold back, but to step forward in faith and take one weekend's offering and give it all away.
So we called it Celebration Generosity, and we gave that week's offering away to several teams doing remarkable work to further the mission of Jesus.
The result? Our largest offering ever. In the middle of a financial crisis, we gave away $250,000.
Now, 13 Celebration Generosities later, we have given away more than $6.5 million.
And today, we're gonna do it again. But before we go any further with this amazing celebration, I want you to take out your phone and open the community app. If you don't have it on your phone yet, download it right now wherever you get your apps. You can scan the QR code on the screen or text app to 331-226-1686.
Whether you're in one of our locations, celebrating on Community Online, in 3C Community, or through Community Freedom, today is the day when we will give the offering away. And later in the service, we're going to ask you to do that from the Community app. So stand by and let's get ready to celebrate generosity.
Hey, community. I'm so excited to be with you on this very special day. I absolutely love Celebration Generosity. For us at Community, the best way to describe Celebration Generosity is like a once-a-year holiday. You know how on Thanksgiving you make the best meal possible and you celebrate together with family and friends? Or at Christmas, you hope to buy the people you love, the very best gift that you can find and then celebrate together? Well, that's what Celebration Generosity is all about. It's the time of year when we bring our very best and most generous gift to God. And then it all goes to causes outside the walls of Community. Today, you're going to hear about dynamic teams that impact our communities locally, regionally, and globally. You'll have the opportunity to hear from our global partners at Compassion International, Philippine Frontline Ministry, and celebrate the amazing work that they're doing in Haiti, Nicaragua, and the Philippines. We'll also celebrate with NEWTHING, our church planting network, and hear how they're not only planting churches all over the world, but also focusing on a regional movement of new churches and church planters right here in Chicagoland. But first, we want to share the work that Community Cares has been doing in our local area as they focus on community development and meeting the very real practical needs right here in our own backyard. Local, regional, and global. These are the teams that are changing the world, and we're challenging you to be a part of that change through your generosity. I promise that you won't regret it.
My name is Amy Plummer, and I am the Director of Community Cares. And our mission at Community Cares is just to unite people together so that we can be a catalyst for the change that we want to see in our communities. Predominantly, we're working in 4 key areas: poverty alleviation, incarceration, educational partnerships, and racial reconciliation. And so we're asking these questions like, how do we meet the needs of our local community right here, right now? And what does it look like to invest in people? And then how do we press into some of those systemic issues that are really negatively impacting poverty and education, incarceration, and race? Last year, Celebration Generosity funded this new organization, Community Cares. And in the midst of the pandemic, it was difficult. We had to shift and then pivot again like everyone else. But we were still able to do some amazing things. We've provided more than 6,000 meals to Hesed House and people cooking in their kitchens because they just want to share the love of God. They want to make people feel valued and appreciated the way a home-cooked meal can do. In the midst of the pandemic, we were able to launch a new location of community freedom at the DuPage County Jail. And right away, we were able to be a part of Life Change and see 5 people be baptized. Educational partnerships have been really hard because the schools are closed and volunteers aren't going in, but we still held Gift Mart, our 18th one, and we were able to care for 1,000 families, providing them with gift cards, and then raising $10,000 for the school so that they could in turn care for their families too. In terms of racial reconciliation, we really were leaning in this year to how do we equip people to have great conversations about race, doused in grace, and really helping to bridge those gaps and provide unity. It started with our May We Be One cohort for our staff, and we've really leaned into a new partnership. We're really excited about bringing the Living Undivided cohorts to community. It's a 6-week multi-ethnic experience that leans into biblical teaching and historical teaching and provides opportunities for us to learn from each other and learn different perspectives. And we believe that this will allow us here at community and also in the local community to be part of that reconciliation that God wants to see for the world. As we look forward to next year, the funds from Celebration Generosity will allow us to do some really new and exciting things, like get back into our school buildings and provide the mentoring and the tutoring, the after-school programming that we haven't been able to do, but we know is so very important. We're excited about partnering with Administer Justice to launch a new Justice Center at the Downers Grove location and be able to help provide access to legal aid for those who it just is not affordable. So thank you. Thank you for helping us to do this. Thank you for your generosity. Celebration Generosity allows us to do what we do at Community Cares, and I am so grateful.
On this day when we celebrate generosity, I'm reminded that one of the most familiar stories about Jesus' ministry is a story about generosity, when Jesus feeds over 5,000 hungry people. The story starts with Jesus and his disciples in a boat, heading out to find a quiet place, but their plan doesn't work out too well as people recognize Jesus and follow them, running ahead of them along the shore. So Jesus, with compassion in his heart, decides to get out of the boat and teach the crowds. Well, pretty soon it's dinner time, and people are naturally getting hungry. The disciples thought they had a great solution. They say to Jesus, "This is a remote place, and it's already very late. Send the people away so they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." But Jesus has a different idea. He says to his disciples, "You give them something to eat." Imagine being the disciples in this moment. Remember, there are 5,000 men in this crowd, along with too many women and children to count. Confused, the disciples protest. They say, "That would take more than half a year's wages. Are we going to go and spend that much on bread and give it to them to eat?" But Jesus isn't shaken by their reaction. He tells them to find out how much food they do have. And what do they find? Just 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Not exactly a feast. I suppose it might be easy for us to jump to the end of the story and see the amazing miracle Jesus performs as he turns that small lunch into a feast for thousands. But think back with me to the disciples' first reaction. When they looked out at the crowd that stretched across the countryside, they thought, there is no way we can meet this need. I imagine they wondered what difference the little they had could make. Sharing the 5 loaves and 2 fish among the 12 of them probably seemed like a better idea than giving it all away. The disciples viewed the world with a sort of scarcity mentality, the idea that there's just not enough to go around. But Jesus lived with an abundance mentality, the perspective that what they had was plenty and there would be enough to provide for everyone. The abundance mentality opens up the possibility of generosity. When the disciples followed Jesus' lead and they handed over what they did have, they got to see Jesus bless it and use it to meet a huge need in a supernatural way. Not only was everyone in that huge crowd fed, they had 12 baskets full of food left over. On this Celebration Generosity Day, the question for me and for you is this: will we let Jesus do something amazing all over again? Just before Jesus left earth physically, he brought his followers together and said to them, "You will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth." His last words to his followers are a commissioning. He's sending them out to bless not just Jerusalem where they were, but the surrounding territories of Judea and Samaria all the way to the ends of the earth. They were to bless the world, to meet needs and change lives. And notice something. 3 times he says, you. Who does he say will receive power? You. Who does he say the Spirit will come upon? You. Who does he say will be his witnesses? You. Jesus looks his followers right in the eyes and says, you are the ones who will carry my mission of restoring God's dream for the world forward. And when he says you to his first followers, I really believe that he's saying you to me, and he's saying you to, that's right, to you. We are commissioned by Jesus to carry out his mission on earth. And he commissions us to not only carry out the mission in the place where we live locally, but also regionally and globally. He's asking me, he's asking you to impact our local community, the regions surrounding us, and to expand that impact across the globe. And my guess is that when many of us first hear that, like the disciples with the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, we think, that's impossible. But today, I want to challenge you to embrace the abundance mindset of Jesus. Today, we have an opportunity together to impact our local community, the region surrounding us, and to expand that impact across the globe. So on this Celebration Generosity Day, the question for me and for you is this: will we let Jesus do something amazing all over again? In a few moments, Dave will be back to introduce us to our global team. But first, co-founding pastor John Ferguson will share the exciting things happening with our regional team, NEWTHING.
I absolutely love Celebration Generosity because it reminds me every year that together we can have an impact that none of us could ever have on our own. You know, when we first started NEWTHING, our church planting mission, we started by launching and coaching a handful of church plants spread out across the country. Churches in Michigan, California, New York, and Massachusetts. That was the beginning. And now we are hundreds of networks all over the world coming together as friends on mission. We are aligned around 4 principles or values: relationships, reproducing, residence, and resources. Those values and the Jesus mission of helping people find their way back to God are the foundation of NEWTHING. And it's humbling to think how God has chosen NEWTHING to mobilize significant church multiplication all over the world. Here in Chicagoland, we have a front row seat to see just how God is using networks of churches who come together as friends on mission to collaborate and start new churches together right here in our city. So I want you to hear from Patrick O'Connell and Ricky Brown as they share the latest on what God is doing through NEWTHING and our Chicagoland networks.
My name is Patrick O'Connell, and I'm the Global Director of NEWTHING. We're a catalyst for movements of reproducing churches, and we do that all over the world. This has been a truly challenging season for so many leaders all over the world, and we're mindful of that. It's been a season of challenge, and yet a season of opportunity. And NEWTHING is in the midst of that. It's right in the middle, living in that tension. We are pastoring pastors these days. And we've always done that, but we've put that at the top because what we've realized is that the men and women who are leading churches globally are going through a very disruptive season. And while there is opportunity, and we know that God is at work, this has also been an opportunity for us to come alongside of them as friends on mission and pray with them and support them and encourage them. And I've just learned so much by working alongside these leaders and praying with them and knowing that we are truly better together. And that all happens because of NEWTHING. We've seen new churches being planted, but we're seeing different expressions. So as an example, micro-church expressions, which have always been very normative in other parts of the world, are now becoming more normative in North America. We're seeing greater collaboration. It's a real opportunity for the global church to work together in ways that we could have never imagined before the pandemic. And so our work has remained the same, seeing churches planted, but in ways that, frankly, I didn't expect to see happen. And that's been a really fun thing to watch. Celebration Generosity has been a true catalyst and absolute fuel for our mission globally. It has allowed us to continue to plant churches, and we're realizing that when NEWTHING plants a church, within 5 years of that first church being planted, there are approximately 5 more. Now that's through networking and that's through successive generation of church planting, but that's a really good thing. So that's going to continue. And we're starting to find opportunities to work with leaders in new places even, new places like Cameroon and Nepal and Bangladesh. And so this is all happening despite the pandemic, despite the challenges, and these are so many good things to celebrate. I am so excited about what NEWTHING has been able to do in and through leaders in Chicago. And this has brought them around the table. We say it's the round table of mission, so we show up as equals, but there are Chicago leaders collaborating and becoming better friends on mission each and every day, helping each other and supporting each other and planting new churches together. I met Ricky Brown right here at Community Christian Church. We had lunch together, and I knew straight away that this was what we call a movement maker. This was a leader that was going to be able to lead other leaders. And this is what NEWTHING does with men and women and people just like Ricky Brown. We help them find an opportunity to lead other leaders through what we call a network. And Ricky's doing that. I mean, he's a local pastor, he's a church planter, he's leading a vibrant community, reaching his community in Chicagoland, and yet he's using his relational equity and a kingdom vision to help other leaders rise up and then plant more churches together. And I love that's what we get to do at NEWTHING, work with leaders like Ricky Brown.
My name is Ricky Brown. I am the founder and lead pastor of New Creation Church, a multi-ethnic, intergenerational church in the Hyde Park area of Chicago. And I also have the privilege of leading the Thirst Network, which is a part of the NEWTHING Chicagoland church planting movement. We launched our church in September of 2018, and the most important thing I could tell you is that 70% of the people that attend our church were not connected to a church before we launched. And so that's what NEWTHING is all about. It's about God doing a new thing. It's been a joy, it's been a journey, it's been tough through COVID, but we're still here. We still have a pulse, so it means that God still has a plan. My friend Patrick O'Connell would say, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. We really are better together. And so inside of our network, inside of the Chicagoland movement, to have relationships with other people who are passionate about seeing God's kingdom move forward, about being committed to multiplication and reproduction, it really invigorates our faith. We keep each other encouraged, and we can share resources and truly be friends on mission. Noah Chung, who is planting a church in our community in Hyde Park. It was such a joy to have him in front of our church, to allow him to introduce himself and to just pray over him and just affirm him in this community in a local church. And truly, that's what's been modeled for me. That's what other people have done for me. Church attendance in Chicago is less than 8%. Within a 3-mile radius of Hyde Park, there are 200,000 residents, which means that's 184,000 people within 3 miles of our church that do not associate with any church or probably with any faith. You know, I always say it like this: if disciples should make disciples, and they should, then churches should plant churches. I believe that God has strategically placed you at a certain point in time, just like He has for each of us who are involved actively in church planting. But I believe that there's more. I believe that God is calling us to more. I believe He is calling us to give even sacrificially. I believe He's calling us to do more. And I think that He's calling us to trust Him more and to believe Him more, that He would do more, that He would do even a more and greater new thing.
So if you remember, I found my way back to God right here at Community. And that journey was fueled by NEWTHING and also Celebration Generosity. One of the first times that I gave big was through Celebration Generosity. And isn't it God's way that He continues to use Celebration Generosity to fuel the Jesus mission, not only right here in Chicagoland, but also throughout the world? And so if there's one thing that I want people to know about Celebration Generosity, your commitment to the Jesus mission through Celebration Generosity and the funds that we receive through NEWTHING have allowed us to work in places that none of us could have ever imagined, but all of which are important to God. And so that is what I am so grateful for. And without Community Christian Church and Celebration Generosity, we wouldn't be anywhere near that. So thank you.
When we first started Community back in 1989, we believed God was calling us to be an impact church. We wanted to be the kind of church that would have a lasting impact on our community, the kind of church that would actually be missed by people in the community if we suddenly disappeared. We also felt called to be a reproducing church. Even from the beginning, we weren't content with simply growing one large church in one location. We knew we could have a greater impact and help more people find their way back to God if we reproduced our church over and over through church planting in order to reach more people in more communities all over Chicagoland. And we rarely talked about it because it seemed a bit presumptuous. But we also felt that if God would bless it, we would love to become a catalyst for a movement. We believed if God was behind it, He could use us to bless the world in ways that would be beyond anything we could have imagined. And God has done exactly that. Our global team partners understand how important it is to make a lasting impact. They reproduce to reach more people in more places every year. And I believe they are poised to catalyze a movement of God's people. And that's why it's so easy to partner with them and why we're so proud to call them partners and friends. The work of Compassion International, Philippine FRONTLINE Ministries, what they've done in the midst of the global pandemic is nothing short of a miracle. And maybe more than ever, they need us to help move the mission forward. Here are their stories from this past year.
My name is Jim Melton, and I'm the Global Partnerships Director at Community, where I oversee what we do globally at all of our locations. Throughout the 8-year history of our partnership with Compassion International, we've been able to put the Compassion Centers in 8 different locations throughout Haiti and Nicaragua, which means that the poorest of the children in those areas receive things like health care, education, spiritual benefits, as well as just being provided with the nutrition they need to keep themselves alive. But in addition to planting these Compassion Centers, we've also planted 5 churches. And so that means that we've gone to the areas that are the poorest of the poor areas in Nicaragua, places where there wasn't a church where Compassion could partner. In addition to that, we've been able to partner our NEWTHING network with Compassion pastors and start catalyst communities so that pastors can grow their churches exponentially in the places where we work. But that's not all. We've also been able to start child survival projects in the areas that we work with, enabling mothers to receive the nutrition and education they need to keep their children alive up until the age at which they're able to enter into the Compassion program. While we continue to remain committed to just helping people find their way back to God, over the past year we've had to change our strategies for doing that. You know, during the pandemic, we realized there was an increasing need for food throughout the world. And so while we've organized groups of people to go to Feed My Starving Children, to provide food packets for those living in extreme need throughout the world, we've also worked with Compassion International to help provide food for those people living in the areas with which we partner. We wanted to make sure that each of the 1,500 children that we sponsor at Community were continued to be cared for. And so we've worked with Compassion and through the tireless work of social workers and nurses and doctors and tutors. Even in places where the Compassion Center is not open, our children continue to receive the benefits and have the hope of knowing that they can escape a life of poverty. In a time when many churches were trying to stay afloat, our church remained committed to the fight against poverty. And we decided to be one of only 3 churches in the United States to hold a Compassion Sunday, a time in which we sponsored the children from our most recent church plant. Because of a generous group of people at Community, every child from that church plant continues to receive all the benefits of the Compassion program until the time at which they can find full-time sponsors. This next year, as we look ahead, we realize the difficulties of fighting extreme poverty all over the world. And we remain committed to fighting poverty through child development, hoping that each of the children who we sponsor and each of the children in the Compassion program can be the ones that lead themselves, their families, their communities, and their countries out of poverty. So the 1,500 children that we sponsor will continue to be our priority. And whether we can visit them or not, we will continue to write letters to them and share the hope and love that comes through a relationship with Jesus. But in addition to that, we know that we can't do everything. And so this year we want to focus on those most in need, those babies that are being born during the pandemic. Through the planting of child survival projects, we can enable over 100 babies to live to see their first birthday, the time at which they're able to enter into the Compassion program, and not only survive, but eventually be the change that we hope to see happen.
My name is Jeffrey Pacina, and I'm the founding director of Philippine Frontline Ministries. Frontline is a community of believers that have committed themselves together for many years to take the gospel to the Philippines. Over the years, the Lord has developed our ministry to focus on 4 specific areas of reaching the Philippines, and that is through church planting, Christian education, compassionate care ministries, and social enterprise, that is providing jobs for Filipinos. Well, I certainly wouldn't want to deny that it's been a very challenging year, to say the least. The lockdowns have been severe and ongoing still, but at Frontline, we have found that while there's difficulties and stresses that we face, we find a lot of opportunities. Who would have thought that during a pandemic, our church planting would actually accelerate? Even our leaders didn't expect that. We've planted more churches in the pandemic time than we had in the previous 5 or 10 years of our church planting. The way our leaders are saying it now is that the church has left the building. Not being able to meet in buildings, it has actually caused them to think differently and to work differently, and so there's been literally an explosion of the development of house churches.
We have churches in the dam site, railroad, and even under the tree, and even sometimes in the forest, you know. So this situation doesn't stop us to plant more churches.
We've planted over 50 churches in people's homes, and some of these churches now have 20, 30, 40 people that are gathering. We've had baptisms of 60 to 80 people during the pandemic. We've been able to take children into Face the Children, our program for kids. There's a growing need there as well because of the economic pressure on families. We find a lot of opportunities yet to minister the gospel to people. Our school, God has provided for us to put up a brand new building, and as soon as we got the building ready to go, took on the risk and had a beautiful venue for our kids, the pandemic hit.
This past year, by the grace of God and through the goodness of His people, Frontline Christian Academy has been able to weather the very unpredictable educational environment here in the Philippines, where face-to-face classes have been prohibited since March of 2020, and all schools have been forced to transition to some sort of online. Actually, children 15 and under have not been allowed outside of their homes since March of 2020 as well. So to say it's a struggle, is an understatement. We lost nearly half of our students when the pandemic hit. It's been difficult, but on a positive note, God has been always good. He always sustains us.
I honestly believe that what Frontline has done, our staff, they're wonderful people, they're committed, they're energetic, they're creative, they're actually excited about what they're doing. And I would say, honestly, this year, we've noted that the kids are actually excited just to get back even to online. Not only are they ministering to the children, but they've expanded the activity to include the families that the children are coming from. So on a monthly basis now, they're meeting with the parents, they're praying for the parents, they're having counseling sessions for the children and the parents, which is a great thing that they're doing for the community.
I was in the school building, our new school building, and I saw this father who's working inside the building, and I was able to talk to him, and they're not churchgoers. But the Lord opened up an opportunity for me to meet their family and ask them if they want to open up a house church. So last year, during this enhanced community quarantine, I was able to lead a house church, leading the family that I have ministered to. It's because of reaching out to the students, and the Lord has given us the opportunity to also reach out to the family, the whole family.
The relationship we've had with community has been a wonderful, wonderful blessing. It's been a great friendship and a great partnership. Psalms 41 says that the joy of those who are kind to the poor, that God will rescue them from their troubles. And I really believe that God's giving us an opportunity in this partnership that God could bless you even more as you and we together continue to focus on people in need and people that are hurting. At Frontline, we help children that are abandoned and abused. We provide them with schooling, full-time care. This year, we've seen some of them graduate from high school. Some of them have now been put into foster homes, which is the first time in the history of the Philippines that a foster care arrangement has been developed through Frontline.
We found Rosemary when she was 9 years old. She was taking care of her sister, Trixie. But when we saw them, we did not think twice. We brought them to our center and really gave them the opportunity to live a normal life.
Well, Rosemary graduated from high school this year, and she's now going to be moving on to university. And not only that, but Rosemary and Trixie May both have now been taken into a foster care arrangement.
The Lord opened up the opportunity for my daughter, Rodelyn, to foster them. So I thank the Lord for that.
And so with your partnership, we've just seen God do so many wonderful things. There's so many people that have come to Christ that are now attending fellowships, reading the Bible, meeting the Lord, knowing the Lord, children that are being cared for and protected, educated, graduating from high school, and even people that are now working and have jobs that can provide for their families. The relationship of community is responsible for a lot of that. We could never have done it without your partnership.